The day in Coruscant was beginning to darken when Anakin strode through the corridors of the Jedi Temple with steady steps. His face showed the turmoil that dominated him. He knew he could no longer hide the truth. Palpatine, the man he had trusted so much, was in fact the Sith Lord who had manipulated the entire war. Mace Windu was the first to speak. If this is true, we must act immediately. Anakin, overcome by the urgency to protect Padme and their unborn children, asked to accompany the mission. But Windu noticed the instability in his eyes. "You will stay here, Skywalker. This is not your fight." The words hit him like a blow, and Anakin felt torn between his loyalty to the Order and his fear of losing what he loved most. Windu, determined, left the hall and went to meet Yoda, who was returning from a long military campaign. Upon hearing the revelation, Yoda, who remained in Coruscant, closed his eyes for a moment, reflecting on the weight of the Force. If confirmed it is, quickly act we must. With you, I will go. The decision was made without delay. Together, the two masters represented the wisdom and ultimate discipline of the Jedi Order. It was a mission that could define the fate of the entire galaxy. There was no room for error. The ships crossed the skies of Coruscant, illuminated by the city's towers. The silence between Windu and Yoda was thick, each focused on what they were about to face. Palpatine, the man who had infiltrated the heart of the Republic, would now be confronted not only by one Jedi, but by two of the greatest living masters. Fate seemed to be leaning toward a decisive showdown. When the doors to the Chancellor's office opened, Palpatine greeted them with his rehearsed smile. "Jedi Masters, what does this unexpected visit mean?" Tension filled the air. Windu stepped forward, saber in hand, and declared, "You are under arrest, my lord. The Senate will decide your fate." Palpatine raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "Arrest? Me? The Guardian of the Republic? This is treason." Yoda tapped his staff on the floor, his deep voice cutting through the scene. "The disguise is over. A Sith you are. Resist, you will not." In that instant, the mask of victimhood fell away. Palpatine rose and revealed a red-bladed lightsaber, its energy bathing the chamber in scarlet light. "Then it is war, masters." Combat was about to erupt. The sound of lightsabers echoed as Windu advanced. Blades clashed in sparks and thunderous energy. Yoda remained alert, watching as a silent guardian, ready to act if necessary, but also to assess every movement. It was Windu who led the direct confrontation, while Yoda sought to understand the balance unfolding before them. The Chancellor's office, with its panoramic windows showing the shining city, became a battlefield. Palpatine fought with fury, his blows quick and treacherous. Windu responded with the coolness of a master, dodging and counterattacking with precision. With each passing moment, it became clear that this fight was not only for the lives of two Jedi, but for the fate of the entire Republic. Meanwhile, Anakin was unable to obey the order to remain in the temple. The conflict within him was unbearable. Palpatine's words echoed in his mind. Promises of power, of salvation, of preventing Padme's death. With each step toward the office, he felt he was betraying the order, but he also believed he was protecting what he loved most. When he arrived, the duel had already reached its climax. Windu had taken the lead and was pushing Palpatine against the window. Beams of dark energy began to pour from the Sith's hands, reflecting off the faces of the Masters. It was at that moment that Anakin entered, his eyes wide at the scene that would define his destiny. Palpatine, amid the bolts escaping from his hands, raised his voice in feigned despair. "Anakin! Help me! They've come to kill me. Only I can save what you love." The words, laden with manipulation, struck the young Jedi's heart like invisible blades. Windu resisted, his purple saber reflecting the discharges, but shouted, "He lies, Skywalker! This is the enemy we swore to destroy." Anakin was paralyzed between the two extremes. On one side, Windu with his unwavering coldness. On the other, Palpatine offering hope to protect Padme. Anakin's gaze wavered, and Yoda finally stepped forward, placing himself between the young man and temptation. Choose wisely you must. The future of the Force in your hands lies. Anakin's mind spiraled. He saw Padme suffering, saw his unborn children being taken by the darkness. "You don't understand," he shouted. "I can't let her die." His words echoed in the hall, revealing his vulnerability. Palpatine smiled, even under the pressure of the deflected blasts. "Then prove your loyalty, Anakin. Save me." It was at that moment that Anakin advanced, saber in hand, toward Windu. But before he could complete his attack, Yoda intervened. The sound of the sabers echoed loudly as Yoda's green blade met Anakin's blue one. The clash lit up the room, and Anakin felt for the first time the real weight of the Master's resistance. "Against me, you must not fight." Windu, still holding Palpatine's lightning bolts, looked on in shock. "Anakin, stop! You are surrendering to the enemy." But the words found no place in the young man's mind, dominated by fear. Yoda stood firm, his blade repelling each of Anakin's hasty blows. The duel was intense, but also fraught with sadness. "Do you want me to just stand by and watch her die?" Anakin roared, each movement more desperate. Yoda calmly dodged, his voice firm. "Fear in you strong is, but you have already lost her if you surrender to hatred." Anakin shouted, furious, but his anger only fueled his weakness. In one swift movement, Yoda disarmed the young Skywalker. The blue lightsaber flew to the ground, but Anakin ran and retrieved it, insisting on continuing the fight. It was at that moment that Yoda made his decisive move. With a spin, he cut off Anakin's hand, who fell to his knees, screaming in pain and defeat. Silence filled the hall for a moment. Palpatine, taking advantage of the chaos, intensified his lightning bolts against Windu. But now, without Anakin as a distraction, Yoda swung his green lightsaber and intercepted the attack, standing beside Windu. Together, the two masters formed a wall against the Sith Lord. Anakin, fallen, watched with teary eyes, realizing that he had crossed a dangerous line. Windu shouted, "This is the end, Sith!" And indeed, Palpatine was beginning to falter. The lightning bolts turned against him, deforming his face, exposing his true nature. Yoda leaped nimbly, striking with precision, while Windu pressed from the other side. The Sith's resistance began to crumble before the union of the two masters. Anakin, lying on the floor, felt the weight of the choice he had almost made. His fate could have been sealed there, but Yoda's presence had prevented him from falling completely. Even defeated, he knew that the Order would never be the same after that night. With one last effort, Palpatine unleashed a wave of energy that exploded against the walls of the office. Glass shattered, and the city of Coruscant glowed in the background. But Windu and Yoda remained steadfast, absorbing the impact with the Force. When the dust settled, the Sith was on his knees, his broken saber beside him, breathing heavily. "You have failed. The Republic is mine," Palpatine muttered. But before he could rise, Windu struck him down, piercing his chest with his purple blade. A cry of pain echoed, and the Sith's body fell motionless to the floor. Yoda closed his eyes, feeling the Force balance again. It's over. At last. Anakin was on the floor, breathing heavily, his eyes filled with tears. The physical pain of his lost hand mingled with the emotional pain of realizing the gravity of his choices. He had almost plunged into the abyss, almost become what he feared. Palpatine's words still echoed in his mind, sweet and poisonous at the same time, promising to save Padme. But the scene before him showed the naked truth. The Sith Lord was defeated, killed by Windu's blade, and his supposed salvation had never been anything more than a carefully constructed lie. The young Jedi looked at Yoda, who stood firm beside him, saber still in hand, and felt an overwhelming weight of shame. There was the Master who had tried to guide him, the one who had believed in him as the chosen one, now forced to face him in combat to prevent him from being consumed by fear. Anakin's heart pounded, not with hatred, but with guilt. He understood that if Yoda had not acted, he could have been Windu's killer and the protector of a tyrant. That thought gnawed at him like an invisible wound. Windu walked slowly toward Anakin, his hard gaze reflecting both reproach and recognition. The purple lightsaber master stopped in front of him and said in a grave voice, "You betrayed the Order by trying to save a monster." The words pierced Anakin like blades. He wanted to protest, to justify himself, but there was no excuse that could erase what he had just done. Windu, however, continued, and his voice took on an unexpected tone. "But it was also you who revealed his identity to us. If not for that, he would still be among us." Those last words brought a glimmer of relief to Anakin, like a spark of redemption in the midst of darkness. Anakin's mind swirled between shame and gratitude. He didn't know if he deserved to be among the Jedi after all, but the memory that he had prevented Palpatine from remaining hidden gave him a spark of hope. The tears on his face were not only from pain, but from understanding. He was on the edge, and he had crossed the line of error, but there was still a way back. As he faced Windu and Yoda, Anakin realized that his fate was not sealed by failure, but by the choice he would make from that point on. He could still be the chosen one, if he learned from his own mistakes. The council was convened shortly thereafter, and the discussion was heated. Some masters advocated Anakin's expulsion, not only for his secret marriage, but for turning against Windu at the crucial moment. Others, such as Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Windu himself, argued that the young man had been manipulated and still deserved a chance at redemption. Yoda was clear. A mistake Skywalker made. But redemption he also achieved. To cut him from the Order would weaken the future of the Jedi, Obi-Wan added firmly. He must learn from his failures, not be destroyed by them. The decision was then made to keep Anakin, but with profound reforms in the Order. Shortly thereafter, Padme gave birth safely. Anakin was by her side, holding their children in his arms, feeling the Force flow differently. He understood that he had almost lost everything. Padme smiled, relieved to see him still on the side of the light. The Skywalker family remained united, and Palpatine's shadow no longer threatened them. The Jedi Order began profound changes. The Council recognized the need to adapt, to allow more humanity to its members. Anakin's marriage was no longer treated as a crime, but as part of his journey. The rigidity that had led so many into conflict began to be revised, making room for a more balanced order. Anakin, in recognition of his actions and also his redemption, was elevated to master. Over time, he became the Grand Master of the Order himself, leading reforms and training the new generation based not only on rules, but also on compassion. His mistake, transformed into learning, made him a wiser leader. The Senate, now free from Palpatine's manipulation, regained control of the Republic. Anakin watched his children grow up alongside Padme, balancing his life as a Jedi and a father. The fear that had almost destroyed him had turned into renewed hope. The Force was in balance, and the Chosen One had finally found the path he should have followed from the beginning.